Options traders seemingly have a secret language all their own, using terms like calls, puts, exercise, and strike price, to name a few. It can be confusing at first, but get your pen and paper ready, as this lesson will help you decipher many of the terms you'll need to know when learning options. Let's start to decode that jargon with an example. Meet two options traders, Jack and Sarah. Both are watching the performance of a particular stock, which is currently trading at $30 per share. Jack thinks the stock will be above $35 in the next 2 months. Sarah also thinks the stock will go up in the next 2 months, but not above $35. Each trader decides to place an option trade to try and profit from their analysis. What is an option though? An option is a contract between two individuals, in this case, Jack and Sarah. Since an option contract is traded on an exchange like a stock, each trade will have a buyer and a seller. In this scenario, Jack will be the buyer and Sarah will be the seller. An option buyer is also said to be going long the option, and an option seller is said to be going short the option. The buyer of an option pays the seller a price that they both agree to. This is called the premium. Every option contract includes an expiration date for when the contract is no longer valid. Jack and Sarah decide that their contract will expire 2 months from today. The contract allows the buyer of the contract, Jack, the right to trade an asset. In most cases, it'll be 100 shares of a specific stock. This stock is formally called the underlying stock. The price that you can trade the stock at is called the strike price. The type and quantity of an asset that can be traded using an option is called the deliverable. The deliverable can also determine the option multiplier. The premium can be expressed as the agreed upon quoted price or the total amount of dollars exchanged. The total amount of dollars exchanged is the quoted price multiplied by the multiplier. For example, Jack and Sarah agree to a price of $1 for their trade, and the multiplier is 100. This means that Jack, as the buyer, pays Sarah $100. So what does the contract entail? In this example, the strike price is $35. In our scenario, Jack wants the company's stock price to go as high above $35 as possible in the next 2 months in order to maximize his profit potential. Sarah hopes the stock price stays below $35 so she can keep the premium she received with no other consequences. Options contracts come in two different types: calls and puts. Calls give the buyer the right or choice to buy 100 shares of the underlying stock at the strike price on or before the expiration date. The seller of the option is obligated to sell 100 shares of the stock at the strike price on or before the expiration date. Note the key difference between having the right versus the obligation. In Jack's case, he can decide whether he would like to buy the shares at $35, whereas Sarah would be required to sell her shares at $35 if Jack decides to exercise his right. Puts work in the exact opposite way. A contract provides the buyer the right or choice to sell 100 shares of the underlying stock at the strike price on or before the expiration date. The seller of the option is obligated to buy 100 shares of the stock at the strike price on or before the expiration date. In our example, a call option best fits the contract that Jack and Sarah created based on their expectations of how the stock will perform. Remember, Jack believes the stock's price will rise above $35, so he would want to buy this option. He wants the right to buy 100 shares at $35 per share from Sarah at any time before the option expires in 2 months. If Jack decides to do this, he is exercising his option, and he can choose to sell those shares at a higher price. Since Sarah sold the option, she's obligated to sell 100 shares of the stock at $35 per share to Jack if he chooses. This is referred to as assignment. Sarah gets to keep the premium she received regardless of what the stock does in the next 2 months. So let's recap the trade between Jack and Sarah using our newfound knowledge. Jack bought a call option from Sarah paying a premium of $100. The contract has a deliverable of 100 shares of stock. The strike price is $35 and it expires in 2 months. The cost of this option is the premium Jack paid to Sarah. She gets to keep the premium regardless of what happens. Jack's potential for profit depends on how high the stock price goes in the next 2 months, minus the $100 premium he paid. Sarah's potential for profit is limited to the $100 premium she received, and only if the stock price stays below $35. At any point between now and the expiration of the option, Jack can choose to exercise his option. If he does, then Sarah is assigned on the option and obligated to deliver or sell 100 shares of the stock to Jack. This allows Jack to buy 100 shares of the stock from Sarah at a price of $35 per share. Of course, this is a very simple example. In reality, trading options is a little more complicated. These terms and concepts are just the first steps on your journey to understanding option trading. If you're ready to learn more, watch our lessons in calls and puts next.